Imagine a dog that would, actually rather have a subtle nod of approval from you than a literal piece of bacon.
Right, which sounds entirely impossible.
Yeah. I mean, we are so used to thinking of dogs as these really simple, totally food-driven creatures. But for the Cocker Spaniel, that single psychological, quirk-valuing connection and validation over a physical reward is, well, it's the absolute skeleton key to their entire existence.
It really is. It changes everything.
Okay, let's unpack this. Today, our mission is to decode the working dog mind that is currently trapped inside your modern family pet.
And it is very much still trapped in there.
Oh, absolutely. The research and the behavioral notes we are digging into today completely flip the script on how to live with these animals. We're talking about moving away from that daily frustration and unlocking a true functioning partnership for you and your dog.
Which is what everybody wants, right?
Exactly. And there's this specific observation from a Cocker Spaniel owner in the notes that really sets the stage for this whole deep dive. She mentioned, like almost offhandedly, that her dog doesn't even seem to want treats half the time. He just wants to know he did something right.
What's fascinating here is that this single observation unlocks the core of their psychology.
Yeah.
I mean, it explains exactly why some training methods work like absolute magic with these dogs, while other approaches—
That's the traditional stuff.
yeah, even really common traditional ones will just completely backfire. If you do not understand that this dog is working for the validation rather than just a snack, you're going to misinterpret almost everything they do.
Well, building on that idea of wanting to do something right, I feel like we should dismantle a really common misconception right out of the gate.
Oh, the easy dog myth.
Yes, you hear people say all the time that Cocker Spaniels are easy dogs, as if they just come out of the box fully programmed, ready to integrate into your chaotic modern household without any friction at all.
Right, and easy is a really dangerous word to use here. I mean,
Yeah.
it implies this sort of effortlessness. It suggests you just don't have to put in the work.
Which is never true with dogs.
Never. The reality is that these dogs are highly intelligent. But intelligence alone does not make a dog easy to train. Think about a husky or certain terrier breeds.
Oh, yeah. Notoriously stubborn.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Those are brilliant dogs. But they're incredibly difficult to train sometimes because they are independent thinkers. They were bred to make their own decisions. So they might know exactly what you want them to do, but they possess the autonomy to simply decide, well, they don't care enough to do it.
They're looking at you, calculating the ROI, thinking, okay, what's in it for me?
Precisely. They need a really compelling external reason. But with the Cocker Spaniel, you have a very specific, carefully bred combination. It's high intelligence paired with a highly motivated desire to connect and seek your approval.
So intelligence without the desire for approval just makes for a stubborn, creative problem child of a dog.
Yes. But when a dog genuinely wants to align with you, the effort you put into training pays off incredibly fast,
Yeah.
provided you approach it the right way.
It makes me think of the dynamics in a middle school classroom.
Oh, how so?
Well, you have the kid who only does the assigned reading because the teacher promised everyone a pizza party at the end of the month.
Right, that's your independent breed.
Exactly. But then you have the straight-A student who thrives purely on the teacher's gold star. They want the validation. They want to look at the teacher, catch their eye, and see that subtle nod of approval.
That is a perfect analogy.
Right. And that kid is highly responsive. But if you put them in a really chaotic environment, or if you ignore their efforts, they are going to crumble. It's an entirely different type of motivation that just requires a completely different management style.
And when you ignore that straight-A student's efforts, not only do they crumble, but they often start acting out, right? Just to get any attention they can, even if it's negative attention.
Oh, for sure.
If we want to understand why a Cocker Spaniel craves that approval so intensely, we have to look backward. We have to trace that psychology back to its origins.
Because this isn't just some random personality quirk.
No, it is biologically hardwired into them. Historically, this breed was engineered to work closely alongside a hunter in the field. Their original job required them to constantly watch their human for cues.
So they were reading body language and all that.
Exactly. They had to read subtle body language, respond to quiet whistles, and function as a seamless partner in this highly coordinated effort. They were never independent operators running off over the horizon to do their own thing.
So they were basically the co-pilot.
Yes, the ultimate co-pilot.
But, okay, if they're so in tune and cooperative, why does every single Cocker Spaniel owner complain that their dog follows them from room to room?
The Velcro dog syndrome.
Right. Every time you stand up to go to the kitchen, the dog is right there. Every time you go to the bathroom, the dog is waiting outside the door. I mean, if they're so intelligent, shouldn't they realize I'm just making coffee, not going on a hunting expedition?
You would think so.
Because to a lot of people, that constant shadowing just looks like plain neediness. It looks like a dog that lacks the confidence to self-soothe.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it completely changes how we interpret that shadowing action. That behavior is actually a sign of a well-bonded dog fulfilling their genetic mandate.
Wait, really? Just following you to the fridge?
Yes. In their mind, they are staying close to their working partner just in case they are needed. They're actively monitoring the situation. Out in the field, if the hunter suddenly changes direction or spots a bird, the dog needs to be right there, ready to engage.
Okay, that makes sense.
So when they follow you to the kitchen, it's an expression of emotional engagement and readiness, not a lack of confidence. They are basically clocking in for their shift and waiting for you, the boss, to give them a task.
So instead of groaning and thinking, my dog is so needy, they won't give me 5 minutes of peace, you should actually be looking down and thinking, wow, look at my extremely loyal employee showing up early for the morning meeting.
Exactly. I love that.
It fundamentally changes the vibe of the house. You go from feeling smothered to feeling, well, supported.
It reframes the whole relationship from annoyance to partnership. But because they are so deeply bonded to you as that working partner, the way you communicate with them carries massive emotional weight.
The stakes are higher.
Much higher.
Yeah.
This is where their emotional sensitivity cuts both ways. Because they are so intensely tuned in to your approval, positive reinforcement lands incredibly powerfully.
You can really see it physically.
Oh,
Yeah.
totally. You can literally watch a Cocker Spaniel's entire physiology change. Their posture lifts, their eyes brighten, and their tail wags in this very specific, relaxed rhythm all just because they realize they've gotten something right.
But the flip side of that sensitivity must mean that when you get it wrong, or, when you lose your temper, the fallout is much worse than it would be with a more aloof dog.
It is entirely destructive. Harsh corrections, raised voices, or even just visible silent frustration from you can actively damage their trust.
Even just being silently mad.
Yes, they read that. A more thick-skinned, independent breed might just shrug off a scolding. They might think, okay, the boss is in bad mood, I'll just keep my distance for a while.
Right, they just brush it off.
But for a dog bred for cooperative partnership, a fractured relationship with their handler is processed as a critical failure. If you lose your temper, you aren't just correcting a behavior, you are actively shattering their confidence.
Wow, so they just shut down.
They shut down completely. The learning stops because their brain shifts from a state of cooperative problem solving into a state of anxiety and self-preservation.
So if you are using training methods that rely on dominance or intimidation or physical correction, the methods that might supposedly yield results with a highly stubborn, independent breed, you are actively breaking the exact mechanism that makes the Cocker Spaniel so trainable in the first place.
You are totally sabotaging your own efforts. Trust is the mechanism. Without it, you have nothing. And this leads directly into how motivation-based learning actually has to be applied neurologically.
How so?
You have to clearly reward the behavior you want, immediately and consistently. The dog's brain needs to draw a crystal clear, uncorrupted line between their action and the positive outcome.
That reminds me, the behavioral notes bring up a fascinating scenario where this associative learning goes terribly wrong, even when the owner has completely good intentions.
Ah, the recall trap.
Yes, the recall trap. Walk us through the mechanics of that, because it seems like a trap almost every dog owner falls into at some point.
It is incredibly common. Recall, of course, is the command to get your dog to come back to you. Neurologically, teaching this works best when the act of returning to the handler is consistently paired with a high-value positive experience.
Like a huge reward.
Right. But what often happens in the real world is that an owner successfully calls the dog back, the dog complies, and then the owner immediately follows that successful recall with an event the dog absolutely despises.
Like calling them inside to give them a bath.
Yes.
Or calling them over to clip their nails, or calling them at the park specifically because it's time to put the leash on and go home.
Exactly. And because dogs are associative learners, their brains map the sequence of events. Over time, the dog's brain stops associating the recall command with the initial praise.
And it links it to the bad thing instead.
Exactly. It starts associating it entirely with the negative event that inevitably follows. The bath, or the nail clipping, overwrites the praise. Consequently, their willingness to come back just plummets.
So the training wasn't wrong, but the emotion got messed up.
Right? Nothing about the technical training method was wrong.
Yeah.
The owner used the command, the dog understood it, but the emotional association became toxic.
Oh man, that's like your boss calling you into their office with a big friendly smile. You walk in, totally eager to please, and the moment you sit down, they give you a pay cut.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
I mean, if that happens 3 times in a row, you are going to start ignoring their calls. Why would you ever willingly walk into that office again?
And not only do you start ignoring their calls, but you start looking for ways to avoid the boss entirely. Perhaps even sabotaging the office environment out of pure frustration.
Right, you start stealing office supplies.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
You have broken the trust of the partnership. And when you have a cooperative working partner with no trust in leadership, or worse, a working partner with tons of energy and no actual job to do, that is when the behavioral wheels completely fall off.
Which brings us to the fascinating concept of bad behavior. Because if this dog is essentially an unemployed working partner with a broken relationship, what do they do all day?
They find their own work.
Right. The experts point out that what we quickly label as disobedience is, on a biological level, very often just deep, unmanaged boredom.
Boredom in an active sporting breed doesn't look like a dog quietly sighing and taking a nap by the window.
I wish it did.
It is active. It is frantic. It masquerades as malice or disobedience. It looks like excessive, relentless barking at literally every leaf that blows across the yard.
Or digging trenches in the garden.
Yes, or chewing the legs of your furniture to splinters, or just this restless, pacing energy that drives families to their breaking point.
They're essentially creating their own jobs because you haven't given them one and you just happen to really hate the job they invented.
Precisely.
The dog thinks, well, no one told me what to do today, so I guess my job is to alert the house to the existence of the mail carrier for 45 straight minutes.
It's a tough job, but someone's got to do it.
So how do we intervene? How do we channel those unmet sporting instincts into something constructive? What constitutes a good job for a dog like this in a modern home?
You have to look at the specific biology of what they were bred to do. Scent work is an incredible tool here.
Oh, like smelling out treats.
Yeah, even a seemingly simple game of hiding high-value treats around a room taps directly into their original purpose.
How does that actually tire them out, though? A lot of people think the only way to tire out a dog is to run them into the ground at the dog park for 2 hours.
It comes down to how their brain consumes energy. The olfactory bulb, which is the part of a dog's brain dedicated to processing smells, is massive compared to ours.
Right, they experience the world through smell.
Exactly. When a dog is actively sniffing, parsing out different scents, and problem-solving to locate a hidden object, their brain is firing on all cylinders. It requires intense cognitive focus.
So it's like a mental workout.
Exactly. 15 to 20 minutes of structured scent work can burn as much mental and physical energy as a long, strenuous run. It satisfies them on a primal level.
That's amazing.
Retrieving games functions similarly. Teaching them to bring an object back to you isn't just a physical game of fetch. It is echoing a built-in behavioral loop. It fulfills that deep-seated psychological need to work in tandem with you.
I want to pivot and explore how these deeply ingrained instincts impact everyday family life. Because bringing a working dog into a modern neighborhood introduces some friction.
It definitely can.
The research mentions that Cocker Spaniels have a strong flushing instinct. For those of us who aren't bird hunters, what does flushing actually mean mechanically, and how does that play out in a living room?
In a hunting context, flushing means driving game-like birds or small mammals out of heavy brush or hiding spots so the hunter can actually see them and take the shot.
Okay.
The dog is bred to detect the hidden animal, dive into the thicket, and startle the prey into motion.
Okay, so if their brain is hardwired to react to a small animal suddenly darting out of a hiding spot, a house cat running across the living room floor must trigger that exact same neurological sequence.
It is the exact same motion sequence. The cat moves, and the dog's biology just screams, there it is, flush it out.
Oh boy.
This is why introductions to other household pets, specifically cats, cannot be rushed or left to chance. Many Cocker Spaniels can live very comfortably and peacefully with cats, but you have to actively manage that instinct.
You can't just toss them both in the hallway, cross your fingers, and say, hope you guys figure it out.
Absolutely not. The introductions need to be highly supervised, remarkably calm, and incredibly gradual. You have to actively teach the dog that the cat is a permanent fixture of the household ecosystem, not a target to be startled and retrieved.
But they can learn that, right?
Because they are so driven by your approval, as we discussed earlier, yes, they can learn this boundary.
Yeah.
But it requires the handler to step up and provide clear, consistent guidance before the flushing instinct takes over.
And what about the neighborhood at large? Because flushing also involves communication, right? They aren't quiet about it.
No, yes, that instinct to alert and communicate means they can be a fairly vocal breed. Historically, they were bred to let the hunter know exactly what was happening in the brush.
So they bark a lot.
Modern owners should expect a dog that has something to say. They're going to alert you to the delivery driver, the neighbor walking their dog, or a strange noise outside.
Right.
It is manageable with proper mental stimulation and training, but you are fighting genetics if your goal is a naturally silent, invisible dog.
Right. They view themselves as the neighborhood watch, and they take the job very seriously. Now, we've talked extensively about the benefits of this deep partnership, the trainability, the loyalty, the responsiveness.
All good stuff.
Yeah, but the behavioral notes highlight a pretty severe dark side to being bred as an attached, cooperative working partner. I mean, if a dog's entire world, their entire sense of purpose, revolves around being in proximity to you, what happens when you inevitably have to leave for an 8-hour workday?
This is perhaps the most critical vulnerability of the breed. Going from a state of constant companionship to long, unbroken stretches of alone time is a major risk.
Because it just shatters their routine.
It goes against their very nature. If their DNA tells them that survival and purpose depend on staying by your side and waiting for cues, being left totally alone in an empty house doesn't just feel boring, it feels dangerous. It can trigger severe separation anxiety.
Because in their minds, isolation equals vulnerability. Leaving them alone in a quiet house probably feels like dropping them on a different planet. So how do you prevent that anxiety from taking root? Because most people do have to leave their houses to work or run errands.
The transition into alone time has to be deliberate, systemic, and gradual. You cannot spend 24 hours a day with a new puppy for a month, carrying them everywhere, and then suddenly lock the door and leave for a 9-to-5 shift.
That would be terrifying for them.
You have to build their tolerance. You start small. Literally just a few minutes of leaving them alone in another room while you are still in the house. And the most important mechanical detail of this process is keeping your departures and your returns completely devoid of emotion.
Which is incredibly hard for people to do. Human nature is to give a big emotional goodbye. You know, mommy's going to miss you so much, be a good boy. We want to comfort them.
I know, we all do it. But comforting them in that moment actually validates their anxiety. It signals to the dog that your departure is a major emotionally charged event that they need to worry about.
Oh, wow. So you're making it worse.
You are. And you must avoid the massive celebrations when you walk back through the door, too. The dog needs to learn that alone time is temporary and completely unremarkable.
Make it boring.
Exactly. It is just a boring, neutral fact of life, not a high-stakes, emotional roller coaster they need to brace for every single morning.
That makes perfect sense. Keep it boring. But what happens if the owner gets it wrong, or, say, adopts an older dog where the anxiety is already deeply entrenched? Because a lot of people assume the dog will eventually just grow out of it or get used to it if they let them cry it out.
This raises an important question.
Yeah.
When does this cross the line from a simple training hurdle into a genuine welfare issue? If you are seeing persistent, escalating distress, if the dog is panting heavily, pacing obsessively, vocalizing in a state of panic, or engaging in destructive behavior that is tied specifically to the times they are left alone, that is not something you just wait out.
It's beyond training at that point.
When a dog reaches that state, their brain is flooded with cortisol. They are experiencing a genuine physiological panic attack.
Wow.
At that point, you are dealing with a severe welfare issue. A dog in a state of chronic panic cannot learn. They cannot be trained out of it with basic obedience.
Because you wouldn't tell a human being who is hyperventilating in the middle of a panic attack to just sit down and get over it. You have to address the underlying panic first.
Exactly. When it reaches that level, it requires stepping back and bringing in a qualified veterinarian or a certified veterinary behaviorist. It requires professional, emotional, and behavioral support and sometimes medical intervention to literally rewire how their brain processes the concept of being alone.
This has been such a profound look at how a dog's ancestral history dictates their present reality. If we synthesize everything we've explored today, from the flushing instincts to the recall trap to the power of a gold star validation, what is the ultimate takeaway for someone navigating life with one of these dogs?
The overarching reality is that a Cocker Spaniel's legendary eagerness to please is not a default factory setting.
That's unguaranteed.
No, you do not just buy this breed and automatically receive a perfectly attuned, cooperative companion. That responsiveness is the byproduct of a fair, consistent, and respectful partnership.
You get what you put in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The most unrealistic expectation an owner can harbor is the desire for quick, permanent fixes to complex behaviors like frantic barking, poor recall, or destructive chewing. Those behaviors are deeply rooted in ancestral instinct and complex emotion.
Right.
Building trust, establishing crystal-clear communication, and adequately meeting their biological need for a job takes significant time and emotional attunement. There are no instant results here. There is only the gradual, rewarding construction of a lifelong partnership.
So what does this all mean for us? We've spent this entire time dissecting how a dog's so-called bad behavior, the digging, the destructive chewing, the restless pacing, is very often just an ancient, unmet working instinct crying out for a purpose.
Yeah.
It really makes you wonder about the human side of the equation. What frustrating behaviors in our own lives or the lives of the people we interact with every day are actually just outdated evolutionary instincts looking for an outlet in a modern world that simply doesn't understand them.
That's a fascinating way to look at it.
Right. I mean, how much of our own restlessness is just a biological drive searching for a job to do? Maybe at the end of the day, we're all just looking for the right role to play and the right partner to give us that subtle nod of approval. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. I hope this conversation encourages you to view your pets and perhaps even yourselves through this new, deeply revealing lens of history, instinct, and partnership. Until next time.